Okay, so I was actually working on a new video about how even if Fiona Harvey had not actually been convicted of stalking the way the Baby Reindeer series says, does not make her innocent or sympathetic character. You have a lot of people online ripping Richard Gadd apart, saying that he's a liar and that he embellished the truth on the series just for the sake of an entertaining story. So while I may agree that Richard Gadd should not have said his stalker had gotten convicted if she had in fact not, it still doesn't cancel out the things that Fiona Harvey did. It doesn't change the point of the story. It doesn't change the fact that Fiona Harvey is a menace to society. And I'm not saying that she is straight up evil, but she is at the very least mentally unwell. She is deranged. And she has a long history of hurting people. And she needs to be stopped. I'm not saying she should necessarily be in prison, but she definitely needs professional help. And if that doesn't help her, she should probably be in a mental facility until she can learn how to coexist with her fellow humans without harassing, stalking, or threatening them. So, as I was working on this new video, Laura Wray made an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored and confirmed everything I was saying. My most recent video, I actually went over a ton of psychotic Facebook rants Fiona Harvey was posting about Laura Wray. Just outrageous accusation after outrageous accusation. If you have not seen that video, I'll leave a link on the outro and you can check it out. It'll help offer context going into this interview here with Laura Wray. If you're not familiar with who Laura Wray is, she's an attorney in Scotland who hired Fiona Harvey in the late 90s, but then had to fire Fiona after only about 2 weeks for her bad behavior. But Fiona claims that she wasn't actually fired and quit working for Laura's firm because Laura and her staff were all so rude to her.
She said that she had to sack you days later because you were completely incapable of behaving yourself.
I walked. Her staff were really, really rude to me.
Which is why she continues to smear Laura all over social media 20 plus years later. So we've seen the interview Fiona Harvey did with Piers Morgan last month. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll leave a link on the outro to the video I made about it. You can check that out along with the other video to help give you context to this interview. So let's get to the Laura Wray interview now and see who seems more credible, Fiona Harvey or Laura Wray.
Let's go back to when you first encountered her.
Yeah.
Obviously, she says that you headhunted her to be a specialist in the employment law at your firm at the time. Is that true?
No. She was looking for a traineeship. She had been looking for a traineeship for about 4 years and couldn't get anyone to take her on, or at least I think she'd been taken on twice before me, but for very brief periods of time.
Okay, that sounds much more believable than what Fiona has been spewing. And this woman already comes across much more stable and consistent than Fiona.
She lured me away from another firm. She headhunted me from another firm.
Fiona contradicted herself every other sentence during her interview with Piers. Let's see if Laura contradicts herself at all, or if she remains consistent throughout the entire interview.
So you're supposed to get a traineeship within 2 years of getting your legal diploma. She must have got several extensions on that because she was way out of time. So I received quite a number of letters from her. And they were in such familiar terms that I thought this must be somebody I've met somewhere, perhaps through the Labour Party. So then when I got engaged to Jimmy, she sent me a congratulations card.
Manipulation tactic. You know she was not the least bit happy for Laura's engagement and just used that as an opportunity to try to talk to her about a job.
So I then got another letter from her saying, "Oh, I'm disappointed you haven't interviewed me for a traineeship." And I felt rather bad about that if this was somebody that I'd met and perhaps overlooked. So I invited her to come in and see me to talk to me. And I have to say, she was reasonably credible. I'm not daft, you know, she didn't behave in the way she subsequently behaved, you know, during the interview. But I did have a few concerns about her. She went into a bit of detail with me about her family circumstances, which I won't repeat.
Okay, so see right there, this woman could have said something to try to embarrass Fiona, but she didn't. So that tells us right there that this woman isn't coming on here with an axe to grind.
But she made me feel very sorry for her, and I said, okay. She said, I've never had anybody giving me a chance. Would you please help me out here? I've got no money, etc. So I said, okay. And she only worked for me for 2 weeks.
Did you believe that she was qualified?
Oh no, I knew she wasn't qualified. She was looking for a traineeship. Trainees do menial jobs like, at the start filing or, sitting in and things. You're training them. They're not doing anything of any great worth for you. So you need to have a 2-year training.
But she said she had a law degree.
Yeah, but that's not enough.
No, it's not full legal training. But do you think that she even had the law degree?
I think she had the law degree because in my file of papers I do have a copy of something from the Law Society where it does state that she's got a law degree. So I believe she has a law degree, and I believe that some years later she got the diploma in law, which you're required to have in Scotland.
Do you think she ever practiced law?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think she ever got a traineeship in Scotland. I know for sure worked with another firm after myself and was fired from there. And caused that firm a lot of grief.
Now look at her body language. Notice she's very calm and collected. She's holding strong eye contact. Breathing is normal. She's not squirming in her seat. She's not stalling after every question, not stumbling over her words. She has the body language of someone who is telling the truth.
She claimed in our interview that you didn't even know the name of your own firm.
Well, that's nonsense.
Look at Piers. He's stifling his laughter right now because he knows how absurd Fiona in this whole story is. Behind the scenes, he's probably cracking up at this entire thing.
I mean, my firm was called L&L Lawrence at the time I employed her. We subsequently amalgamated with a much larger firm called Drummond Miller, who took over ourselves and another trade union firm called McPhail's. So to keep the connection with the firms and to keep the goodwill, they called us the McPhail-Lawrence Partnership in Glasgow. And then a few years later, we were all subsumed into Drummond Miller.
So it seems like Laura actually does know the name of her own law firm, contrary to what Fiona said.
A trainee role at the legal firm McPhail-Lawrence Partnership in 1997. Is that true?
It was called L&L Lawrence. I think she forgets the name of her own firm. It was called L&L Lawrence.
She was there to learn from us rather than the other way round.
And how did she do?
She was dreadful. I mean, I wasn't there all the time, but essentially she was rude to staff. She shouted at people. She was inappropriate with a male member of staff. She tried to follow a male member of staff home.
You hear that? That's exactly why she needs to be in a mental facility. Following a co-worker home? That is deranged. I understand she's dealing with some sort of mental illness or disorder, but regardless, she's putting people in danger. Yes, we should have compassion and sympathy towards people like this, but compassion and sympathy come after safety. First, we get out of harm's way. Imagine if someone like Fiona was doing this kind of stuff to a male in your family. What if this was your husband or your son, your father or brother? Are you going to cry about sympathy as she's following your husband all across town? Would you be concerned about compassion if some stalker wouldn't leave your son alone? See, people love the virtue signal online about compassion, but that's really easy to do from your keyboard when you're not facing any kind of threat. But let some mentally ill stalker show up at your doorstep after following someone in your family home, then let's see if you still think Richard Gadd is the villain. Until you've actually experienced it for yourself, quit virtue signaling from your safe space.
I mean, all sorts of things happened. She threw a book across the office and hit somebody with it.
She threw a book across the office and hit someone with it. Do you think Laura is lying here? What motive would Laura have to make up something like that? This is just one more of many examples of Fiona's unhinged behavior. She is not mentally fit to be out among regular society. Unless, of course, you think tossing books at people in a fit of rage and following people home is acceptable conduct.
But on the hotline, she was heard to be saying to people, oh, you don't want to come here. I'll give you the name of another firm of solicitors. So we were paying all this money for this premium rated hotline, and she was giving the details of our competitors to individuals.
And did you try and have it out with her?
Well, I did. I mean, the first thing that had happened was on day one, she came into my cashier demanding that the cashier give her a sub. And our cashier, Caroline, said to her, I'm sorry, but we don't do that. You'll need to wait to the end of the month. A couple of days later, she came into my office, burst through the door, very upset and kind of angry. And I said, what is it? And she said, well, there's a man downstairs who won't leave. I owe him money. And I thought, goodness, somebody sitting in my reception, anybody else who's waiting there will think I owe this man money. So I said to her, well, what's this all about? And she said, well, I owe him for a car repair. And she said, so I need a sub. And I said, well, I'm disappointed you keep asking for subs because we've told you we're not going to do that. I said, how much is it? She said, £250. And she said she borrowed the money from her auntie, but when she went into the envelope, it wasn't enough money in it. And she said she had no money to live till the end of the month. So I said to her, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you £250 out of my own personal money. Go and pay the man and then come up and talk to me. So she came up and talked to me. I said, keep the other £230 to keep yourself going. I said, and she then started to tell me about various financial problems she had, which I won't go into. But I volunteered to go and speak to her bank to try and help her out. I was trying my level best to give this person a helping hand.
Now, keep in mind, this is the woman Fiona is ripping apart limb by limb over social media. This is the woman she is smearing all over Facebook, saying all kinds of vile and nasty things about. This is a prime example why you cannot help deranged people like Fiona Harvey. When you try, they will always bite the hand that feeds them. The only hope for someone like Fiona Harvey is professional psychiatric help, not the average citizen attempting to extend a hand.
And I went down, I spoke to her bank about a week later, smoothed everything out for her. And when I came back to the office, she started saying to me, oh, I've been on the phone all afternoon to the Law Society to find out what will happen if I go bankrupt. And I said, well, Fiona, if you want to be a solicitor or ever be in a partnership, that's not the way to go. So anyway, I made a suggestion to her that she might want to sell the old car that she had, which had been the cause of the bill for the breakdown. And at that, she just went completely crazy and started screaming at me. Very similar to the scene in episode 1 in Richard Gadd's show.
But yet, many Fiona Harvey defenders will say that the unhinged behavior exhibited from the Martha/Fiona Harvey character doesn't need to be held accountable because Richard Gadd said she was a convicted stalker, when it turns out that that may not be technically true. But regardless, if she had been convicted or not convicted is not the point. She is deranged and dangerous all the same. And that is what the audience should be taking away from Baby Reindeer.
What was she screaming?
Don't you speak to me like that. And she did the same thing with a couple of other members of staff. One of my conveyancing staff was trying to show her how to do some kind of clause in a conveyance. And she started shouting the same thing at me, don't you say that to me, don't speak to me like that, but in a very loud and aggressive tone.
And yet another example of Fiona Harvey displaying the exact same psychotic behavior of Martha that Richard Gadd wrote on the Baby Reindeer series. So is Laura Wray and Richard Gadd conspiring together? Is this just some elaborate scheme to try to make Fiona Harvey look like a lunatic? Well, according to Fiona's Facebook posts, that's exactly what it is.
So it became quite obvious quite quickly that she really wasn't cut out for this kind of thing. She, I'm trying to think, one of the other things she did was she phoned up a disabled solicitor that we used to do Edinburgh agency work for. And she phoned him up and said to him, oh, I just want you to know that all the people here in this office, nobody likes you. Everybody says nasty things about you and makes comments about you.
Yeah, but in her defense, she was not actually a convicted stalker. Therefore, this other stuff doesn't really matter, does it?
Now,
and what was his disability?
he was, I think he'd had polio, so he couldn't walk properly.
My God.
So, you know, it was nasty stuff. She grabbed a phone from one of my members of staff who was on trying to explain something to a client who obviously was giving him some difficulty, and she then started shouting abuse down the phone at the client.
Fiona she was just being a team player. The client had probably been talking about taking his business to another firm, so Fiona needed to do whatever it took to keep the client. Sometimes people need abuse shouted at them so they'll know they're stupid if they don't do what you want. And you fired her for that? You should have promoted her to partner.
So there was a whole number of these incidents. And I had spent a few days in London. I was on the executive of the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers, and I think it was one of their meetings I was at and doing other things in London, seeing clients.
Oh, so now the truth comes out. Laura was out goofing around in London all day while Fiona was left at the office doing all the work, schmoozing clients, trying to keep the firm intact.
And I came back to the office this was at the end of the second week, so there'd been a few incidents I was aware of. But by the time I got back, there was more and more being reported to me. Staff members in tears because of the way she'd spoken to them.
She was just trying to rally the troops. You're welcome.
So I got her into the office and I said, look, you know, this is not on. I put some of the stuff to her. I asked her about the phone line. And she said, no, I didn't do that. And then she says, oh, well, yes, I did, but I thought it was the right thing to do.
Of course. Who would not have thought that when potential clients call your law firm, you refer them to other law firms? That is how you avoid getting too many clients and then having to do too much work. It's called working smarter, not harder.
So I just said, well, I don't think, you know, you're cut out for here.
Don't you do it. Don't you dare. Firing Fiona Harvey would be the greatest mistake of your career. Who else are you going to find to shout at clients and throw books at people when they make an error? If you had just given her another month, all of your clients would be too scared to ever leave, and every employee would be too afraid to ever make another mistake. You just gotta trust the process. Fiona's methods may not be conventional, but you can't argue with the results.
So I said to her, I'm afraid that's it. I paid her for the month. She'd only been there 2 weeks and obviously had done nothing apart from cause complete havoc. And then she said, I'm not leaving.
What courage! Sometimes you just gotta take a stand and do what's right. If someone is trying to unjustly fire you, after you've done nothing but cause chaos and havoc, you just gotta lock eyes with oppression and say, no, I'm not taking this. And do not waver. If they call the police, that'll be perfect, because then they'll be able to see that every employee in that building has been attacking you and that you did nothing wrong. I mean, that's why she wasn't ever legally convicted. Because only people with documented criminal records need to be taken seriously. Obviously, Fiona's harmless, and Laura Wray made all that stuff up and fired Fiona because she's jealous of her and was afraid that Fiona was going to take over the firm.
I'm going to phone the Law Society, I'm not leaving. And she then started shouting and screaming, running around the office. And eventually, my cashier and I, Caroline, had to get one arm on either side of her and actually march her out of the office.
You mean she broke the peace and refused to leave? Kind of like when the bouncers had to escort Martha out of the comedy club when she wouldn't stop heckling Richard Gadd during his stand-up act? You mean to tell me this behavior is a pattern? No, it can't be true. There's no way. Laura is probably just making this up after she watched Baby Reindeer. I mean, there's no record Fiona Harvey was ever convicted, therefore, everything in Baby Reindeer must be made up as well, right?
And she stood out there for at least half an hour screaming abuse. And that was when it all started. Thereafter, every day I'd come into the office, the answer phone would be full of messages, all from her,
Alright, so let's do a quick comparison. We've been watching Laura Wray for a while now, and here she's talking about how Fiona left her countless voicemail messages, which Richard Gadd said the same thing. But when Piers asked Fiona about this, here was her response.
But if he has 350 voice messages and it's you...
It doesn't mean the drama is true.
But is it possible he's got 350 voice messages?
I doubt that very much. I just don't think so.
You doubt it?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, unless
Wouldn't
he's been taping me.
I mean, if you've never really contacted him, if he's
He
got
could have been taping me in the Holy Arms, though.
But if he's got 350
I've not contacted
but if these
him.
are on his phone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether they're on a phone, tablet, whatever they're on. I've not contacted
But I'm curious,
him.
why would there even be a possibility of him having that number of voice messages from you?
Because he's crazy, he wants to make this up. I mean, I've not phoned the guy. I don't have his number.
Yeah, but you're not sure that he hasn't got those?
So who are we thinking looks more credible?
All threatening, nasty.
What kind of threats?
I'll get you, you're not going to get away with this, I'll get Jimmy Ray. All that sort of stuff. I know that sounds a bit vague, but the way it was said was in a very threatening manner.
And how many was she leaving on a daily basis?
Well, the answer phone would be filled up.
How many was that, roughly?
I'm not sure how many messages, but she would rant on. It would take probably about an hour's worth of call.
Every day?
Every day.
All of this is in perfect alignment with what Richard Gadd portrayed in the Baby Reindeer series and with all of her excessive Facebook posts. I mean, that last video I made took me over 30 minutes just to scroll through and read all of her Facebook posts from just one day. All of the posts I read on a 30-minute video was from April 29th. That's it.
And then when we amalgamated with the other firms, again, she did the same thing, not necessarily every day by that point. She blew a bit hot and cold, but it was pretty persistent for a couple of years. Also,
years?
Years. She did this for nearly 5 years.
Yeah, but who cares? She wasn't actually a convicted stalker, so it doesn't really matter, right?
So what she would do, given that way back in 1997, this was really at the start of the internet, so people weren't emailing to the same extent they do now. What she would do would be phone up other solicitors or send them faxes with defamatory stuff about me, saying how terrible I was, how terrible the firm was, accusing people of everything under the sun.
And that's exactly what she did on Facebook. She'd write post after post after post, just saying the most outrageous things about Laura Wray, Richard Gadd, Neil Sears, and others. She is just full of so much venom. If you look back on some of my videos, I documented hundreds and hundreds of her unhinged Facebook posts. And I'm glad I did, because shortly after she made her account private, so these are no longer accessible. But I managed to get them just before she took her posts down.
And then, I would get phone calls from people I didn't know who would say, I'm really embarrassed. I've had this fax through from this woman. I don't know her and I don't know you, but I thought I ought to bring it to your attention. So I had issued the staff with panic alarms, right back at the beginning when all this started, because, I had grown adults in tears, terrified that she was going to harm them, terrified that something awful was going to happen.
I don't get it. What were they so afraid of? Didn't they know, since she wasn't actually a convicted stalker, that there was nothing to worry about? Okay, so I've said that sarcastically about a dozen times now. But I reiterated the point throughout the video because how ridiculous these Fiona Harvey defenders are while going on this crusade against Richard Gadd and making Fiona out to be some victim based on a technicality that doesn't at all cancel out all the stress and fear that she causes many who have the unfortunate fate of crossing her path. Laura Wray comes across completely honest, genuine, and authentic. There's not a single moment of this entire interview where she comes across even a tad sketchy. She clearly is telling the truth and has suffered immense anxiety from Fiona. Hopefully, a lot of these Fiona Harvey defenders will watch this interview and realize that even though Fiona may not have been an actual convicted stalker, that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So that's about the end of the part where Piers talks to Laura about her time working with Fiona. The video's starting to get pretty long, so I'll make a second video going over how Fiona started harassing and stalking Laura's family. So that's about it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and God bless.